You're not a bad motorcycle rider. You've just been making these 7 braking mistakes that kill experienced riders. The NHTSA just dropped a bomb. 30% of fatal crashes involve riders who couldn't stop in time. But here's what nobody's telling you. Your basic riding course only taught half the physics equation. Right now, your survival instincts are sabotaging every stop. Let's fix that before it's too late, starting with the death grip that's destroying your brakes. Mistake number 1, the death grip syndrome. Let's kick things off with a mistake that's probably costing you hundreds in brake pad replacements and making you look like a rookie at every stoplight. I call it the death grip syndrome. You know what I'm talking about? You approach a stop, and instead of progressively squeezing that front brake lever like you're gradually turning up a dimmer switch, you're grabbing it like you're catching a falling hammer. Here's the controversial part that nobody talks about. Your motorcycle's front brake can generate over 1 G of deceleration force, but only if weight has already transferred to that front tire. Why does this happen? Your brain is hardwired from decades of driving cars where you stomp on a pedal and let ABS sort out the mess. But motorcycles operate on different physics. When you grab suddenly, you're asking a contact patch the size of a credit card to do all the work before weight has shifted forward. The fascinating part, your front tire needs about 0.7 seconds for optimal weight transfer to occur, which is why professional riders count their brake application in heartbeats, not milliseconds. Here's your 30-second fix. Imagine you're squeezing water from a sponge. You start gentle, then you progressively increase pressure as the sponge compresses. That's exactly how you should approach your front brake lever. Begin with 2 fingers of light pressure, then slowly increase force as you feel the forks compress. And before you ask about panic stops, hold that thought. We're getting there. For your parking lot drill, mark out a 100-foot straight line. Starting at 25 miles per hour, practice stopping using primarily your front brake. Here's the key. Count 1,000 to 1,000 as you squeeze. Your goal is smooth deceleration without any tire noise or dramatic fork dive. 20 repetitions will rewire those reflexes. Safety gear mandatory. We're building skills, not YouTube crash compilations. If you're finding value here, hit that subscribe button. Every week, I break down the techniques that advanced riding schools charge hundreds to teach. Except, I include the real-world applications they skip. But first, let's tackle mistake number 2, which even track day regulars get wrong. Mistake number 2, the rear brake abandonment. This one's going to ruffle some feathers, but here goes. If you're ignoring your rear brake above walking speeds, you're missing out on a crucial stability tool. The rear brake isn't just for U-turns and hill holds. In fact, Mick Doohan famously won 5 consecutive 500cc world championships using a thumb-operated rear brake because he used it so much mid-corner that his injured leg couldn't keep up. Something your riding instructor probably never mentioned. Why do riders abandon the rear brake? Fear of locking it up, mainly. But here's what they don't tell you. A sliding rear tire that's kept in line is manageable and can actually help rotate the bike in certain situations. The real danger comes from releasing a locked rear brake after the bike has stepped sideways. That's your guaranteed high side recipe. Professional flat track racers actually use controlled rear slides as a primary turning technique. The 30-second fix is counterintuitive. Deliberately practice finding the rear brake's threshold. In a controlled environment, you need to learn exactly how much pressure causes lockup with your specific bike and tires. The key is developing muscle memory for that threshold point. It's different for every motorcycle based on weight distribution and brake design. Your drill requires some chalk lines or cones. Mark a straight path and practice using only a rear brake from 20 miles per hour. Your goal is to find maximum braking just before you lock up. You'll feel it as slight tire chirping. Once comfortable, intentionally lock it briefly to understand that sensation. Remember, controlled environment only. This isn't for public roads. Mistake number 3, the corner entry panic. All right, here comes the controversial stuff I warned you about. Trail braking. Maintaining brake pressure while initiating lean isn't just for racers. Keith Code's California Superbike School has been teaching it for decades. Yet many street riding courses still pretend it doesn't exist. Here's the data. Telemetry from professional racing shows riders maintaining brake pressure through the first third of corner entry, using it to corner speed and chassis attitude. Why does corner entry panic happen? Because somewhere along the line, someone drilled into your head that brakes plus lean equals instant crash. That's like saying you can't steer while decelerating in a car. Sure, grabbing a fistful at maximum lean will end badly, but maintaining light pressure, we're talking 10 to 20% of straight-line braking force, actually stabilizes the chassis by keeping the front suspension in its optimal range. Here's something fascinating. Police motor officers, who arguably have the best low-speed motorcycle control on the planet, use trail braking through their entire cone pattern training. The California Highway Patrol specifically teaches it as a control technique, not just for slowing. Yet, civilian courses act like it's voodoo that'll instantly kill you. The 30-second fix starts with understanding that trail braking is about load management, not just deceleration. As you tip in, instead of completely releasing, maintain just enough brake pressure to keep those forks compressed about an inch. You'll feel increased front-end feedback and more precise steering response. Think of it like keeping light tension on a rope. It gives you better control than letting it go slack. For practice, create a 40-foot diameter circle with markers. Circle at 15 miles per hour, then practice maintaining minimal front brake pressure through the turn. You're not trying to slow significantly, just maintaining chassis geometry. Start with barely perceptible pressure and gradually increase as comfort builds. This single technique transforms corner confidence. Mistake number 4, the emergency stop freeze. Here's sobering research from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. In actual emergency situations, most riders achieve less than 60% of their motorcycle's maximum braking potential. That's right, your bike could stop 40% shorter, but panic makes you forget everything you know. The reason isn't lack of skill, it's lack of recent muscle memory. Your emergency response skills degrade without practice, just like any athletic ability. Why do riders freeze? Because emergency braking on 2 wheels requires overriding every natural self-preservation instinct. When faced with danger, your primitive brain wants to stiffen up and brace for impact, not execute a complex sequence of coordinated movements. Your amygdala doesn't understand progressive brake application. It just screams, "Stop now!" The 30-second fix requires building automatic responses through repetition. Fighter pilots use a technique called chair flying, where they mentally rehearse emergency procedures until they become reflexive. You need the same approach with emergency braking. During every normal stop, mentally rehearse your maximum braking sequence. Firm progressive front, steady rear, clutch in, eyes looking up ahead, not down at the danger. Still with me? You're clearly committed to becoming a better rider. So drop a comment below with your biggest braking challenge. And while you're there, ring that notification bell. Mistake number 5, the downshift disaster. Now we're entering territory that separates good riders from great ones. You're approaching a red light, engine breaking down through the gears, when suddenly traffic stops unexpectedly. What happens? Most riders completely abandon shifting, focusing only on brakes. But here's what nobody discusses. Proper rev-matched downshifting during braking keeps your rear tire in its optimal traction zone while adding engine braking to your total stopping power. Why does the downshift disaster happen? Because riders treat transmission and brakes as separate systems instead of one integrated deceleration machine. Modern MotoGP bikes have sophisticated slipper clutches and auto blippers specifically to maximize this integration. Yet, most street riders either ignore engine braking or execute it so poorly that it actually upsets chassis balance. Here's a physics that'll blow your mind. When you properly rev match during aggressive braking, you're maintaining what engineers called longitudinal slip ratio, keeping the rear tire in its peak grip zone of about 8 to 12% slip. Too much engine braking without matching revs causes the rear to momentarily lock each shift, breaking traction and extending stopping distance. The 30-second fix is learning to blip while braking. Yes, simultaneously. As you apply both brakes, you'll crack the throttle slightly on each downshift to match engine speed to road speed. It feels completely alien initially, like juggling while riding a unicycle, but once mastered, it transforms your control. The secret is keeping brake pressure absolutely constant while your right hand does a quick throttle blip. Your drill starts simple. From 30 miles per hour in third gear, Practice stopping while smoothly downshifting to first with proper rev matching. Focus on maintaining consistent brake force during each blip. Once smooth, add more gears and speed. The goal is seamless deceleration where passengers can't feel the shifts, only hear the engine note changes. Mistake number 6, the weather denial. This mistake causes more accidents than all others combined, yet nobody wants to discuss it honestly. When roads get wet, most riders just brake more carefully without actually changing technique. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Wet weather braking requires fundamentally different approaches, and the old advice of just be gentle actually increases crash risk on modern tires. Why does weather denial happen? Because riders drastically underestimate modern tire technology. Today's sport touring compounds offer wet grip levels that would have seemed impossible 20 years ago. We're talking 70 to 80% of dry traction with proper technique. The limitation isn't your tires. It's not adapting your method to access that available grip. Here's what nobody tells you. In wet conditions, you actually need firmer initial brake application to generate operating temperature. Modern brake compounds need heat to function properly, and wet conditions constantly cool them. By being too tentative, you never reach effective temperatures, essentially trying to stop with cold, ineffective pads on cold, hard rubber. The 30-second fix involves active thermal management. In wet conditions, periodically drag your brakes lightly when safe to maintain temperature. When stopping, apply slightly firmer initial pressure than feels natural to quickly generate heat, then modulate normally. Think of it like warming up before exercise. Your brakes need temperature to perform. For wet practice, wait for rain or carefully wet a safe section of empty pavement. Practice finding the actual wet limit, not where you think it might be. Start conservative, but keep pushing progressively. You'll be amazed how much traction exists. Obviously, extreme caution here. Appropriate protective equipment, minimal speeds, ideally with a spotter present. Mistake number 7. The suspension ignorance. Here's the million-dollar oversight that even veteran riders make. Completely ignoring how suspension affects braking performance. Your suspension isn't just about comfort. It's literally what keeps your tires connected to pavement during weight transfer. Yet, most riders haven't adjusted anything since leaving the dealership. Properly set suspension can transform braking effectiveness and eliminate excessive dive. Why does your suspension ignorance persist? Because manufacturers set suspension for an average 165-pound rider carrying no luggage. If you're different weight or carry gear, your settings are wrong. Additionally, riders think suspension tuning requires engineering expertise. Reality is, you can achieve 90% optimization with basic understanding and simple adjustments. The 30-second fix begins with set and sag correctly. How much suspension compresses under your weight? You want approximately 25 to 30% of total travel as sag. Too little means suspension can't extend over bumps, brake and tire contact. Too much causes bottoming under hard braking, reducing control and increasing stopping distances. For setup, you'll need a measuring tape and assistant. First, measure current sag properly. Plenty of online tutorials show the process. Adjust preload to achieve proper numbers. Now, here's the key. Repeat earlier braking drills and notice the dramatic improvement in control and confidence. Most riders report feeling like they bought a different motorcycle entirely. Now, let's bring it all together with the technique that separates pros from everyone else. Brake overlap. Maintaining light rear brake while applying strong front creates incredible stability that professional racers use constantly. The rear prevents that sketchy light feeling while the front does the heavy lifting. Telemetry proves the fastest riders almost never use just one brake in isolation. Here's a hard truth. Most of us operate at half our bike's capability. Not because we lack talent, but because we learned crash prevention techniques instead of performance skills. The difference between panic grabbing and controlled maximum braking is simply understanding the physics and practicing until it becomes instinctive. You don't need expensive track days, just an empty lot, proper gear, and 30 minutes monthly. Your brakes generate more force than your engine and provide more real performance than any exhaust system. They're your only defense against the unexpected. So hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Next week, I'm revealing the 5 vision strategies that separate riders who avoid trouble from those who find it. Drop a comment with which mistake hit home. Remember, practice in empty lots with full gear. You're not a bad rider. You just need better information. Now you got it.